After successfully conquering his two childhood sweethearts, Gu Yanxi summoned the system and decided to leave this world completely without telling them. In the huge villa, the system popped up, and the panel was glowing. Host, your application has been approved. In 15 days, you will be completely out of this world. Because you have performed well in the mission, you can be rewarded with 2 things to take back to the original world. Gu Yanxi's eyelashes trembled as he listened to the system's prompts. Can I take everything with me? Yes, host. After getting a positive answer, Gu Yanxi made his choice without hesitation. Okay, I decided to take away Ruan Xinyue's wealth and Xin Xingshue's IQ. With a soft ding-dong sound, the contract was signed. The 15-day countdown on the screen has started. Gu Yanxi opened his eyes and looked at the photo of 3 people on the wall, slightly absent-minded. He, Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue are childhood sweethearts who grew up together. 20 years ago, he was brought to this strange world by the system because of an accident and was an orphan in an orphanage. The system requires him to conquer 2 women and make them fall in love with him at the same time before he can successfully return to his original world. Finally, he chose 2 girls from the same orphanage as him, Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue. At first, he did try to get close to them in order to conquer them, but later, the 3 of them felt sorry for each other and depended on each other, so he fell in love with them and did his best to be nice to them. The orphanage abused the children and only gave them 1 meal a day, so he saved his own food and shared it with the 2 of them, and drank water to fill his stomach. They were admitted to a top university together. The 3 of them worked day and night for a summer, but the money they collected was still only enough for the tuition of 2 people. He took the initiative to withdraw so that they could continue their studies. When 3 people were in a car accident, he stood in front of them without hesitation and saved their lives at the cost of being seriously injured. On that day, the favorability of both of them reached full marks at the same time. The system told him that they had completely fallen in love with him. He completed the task and received generous strategy points, so he could choose to leave. Gu Yanxi was very happy that his long-cherished wish had come true, and now he had points that allowed him to return to his original world and exchange them for many things. But at that time, Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue were both at the lowest point in their lives. One was frustrated by the failure of her business, and the other was anxious because of the lack of progress in her academic research. There were countless sleepless nights when they stayed awake all night. The thing they did most was to hug him for comfort. The words they said most were, "Yanxi, you are the only one I have, please don't leave me." After being together for many years, Gu Yanxi couldn't believe how crazy they would go if he left at this moment when he saw them in so much pain. So he delayed his departure, and used all the strategy points he had accumulated over the years to exchange business opportunities for Ruan Xinyue and wisdom for Xin Xingxue. In just 1 year, the 2 people's life experiences changed dramatically. Ruan Xinyue became the world's richest person and topped the Forbes wealth list. Xin Xingxue won the Nobel Prize and became a highly sought-after genius scientist. It should have been a happy situation for everyone when the 2 childhood sweethearts' dreams came true, but the story does not end here. A month ago, a newly graduated intern named Hui Yunshin came to Gu Yanxi's studio. Because he was young and his family was poor, Gu Yanxi always kept him by his side to take care of him. As a result, he got to know Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue. Gradually, Gu Yanxi discovered that he didn't know when it started, but the 2 of them suddenly became fond of Hui Yunshin. At first, it was just some trivial matters. For example, she took extra care of Hui Yunshin's taste when dining, and ordered a table full of seafood, but forgot that he was allergic to seafood. For example, she stood him up on his birthday and went to take care of Hui Yunshin who had a cold. For example, she gave him a gift that should have been given to him, but Hui Yunshin said he liked it. After that, as such little things happened one after another, he just endured them silently, until tonight, at his birthday party, when Hui Yunshin deliberately pulled him under the chandelier and said some ambiguous words. Gu Yanxi didn't understand his intention and was about to leave, but Hui Yunshin didn't let him go. At that moment, the ceiling above his head fell down. Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue both chose to save Hui Yunshin, leaving him covered in blood. He was injured so badly, but instead of showing any concern, they blamed him for bringing Hui Yunshin to such a dangerous place, wondering if they wanted to hurt him on purpose. He endured the pain and explained the reason, but they frowned and tried to excuse Hui Yunshin. "Are you saying that Yunshin deliberately planned this to harm you? Yunshin is kind by nature, how could he do such a vicious thing? Why do you have to slander him?" Watching the 2 people who had supported him through so many ups and downs standing against him, Gu Yanxi smiled at that moment. As he laughed, his eyes turned red. He did not argue. He went home covered in blood, treated his wounds, and then called out the system. He was leaving this world, taking with him everything he had given them. He really wanted to know, after they lost their current wealth, status, fame, and intelligence, would Hui Yunshin, who they described as so simple, kind, and innocent, ever look at them again? Gu Yanci was waiting for that day to come. A few woof 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 sounds of dogs barking interrupted Gu Yanci's thoughts. He looked down at the chihuahua that had run in at some point and was rubbing against him obediently. This dog was given to him by Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue 2 years ago. At that time, the two of them became famous overnight and had everything they wanted. One bought a manor and the other bought a castle. They both said they wanted to take him in to live with them, and they quarreled all the time about this. In the end, Gu Yanci had no choice but to propose buying the current villa and the three of them living together. This dog came to this family on the day of moving. The two of them brought home a dog, which was his favorite golden retriever. They smiled and said that they wanted to raise it with him until old age. Now he is about to leave this world, and Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingshue's attention is on Hui Yunshin. He must arrange a new place for the puppy before he can feel at ease. The next day, he called a pet agency and made an appointment to send the puppy there that day, waiting for the new owner to adopt it. After breakfast, Gu Yanci went out with the puppy in his arms. When I came back after completing the formalities, it was already evening. Before I even entered the door, I heard noise coming from the living room. Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue, who had disappeared for several days, said something that made Hui Yunshin laugh uncontrollably. When he pushed open the door, all the sounds stopped in an instant, and the three of them looked over at the same time, with smiles on their faces that they had not yet had time to put away. After a long silence, Ruan Xinyue asked casually, "Where have you been so late? Why did you come back so late?" Xin Xingxue asked about something that she noticed as soon as she entered the room. "Where's the puppy? Why is it gone?" "It's a bit of a cold, I took it to the veterinary hospital." Gu Yanci made up an excuse to get away with it and was about to go upstairs, but Hui Yunshin called him timidly. "Brother Yanci, my neighborhood is not safe these days. Sister Xinyue and Sister Qingxue are worried about my safety, so they asked me to move in for a while." Gu Yanci was not surprised that they brought Hui Yunshin back without his consent. Before he could speak, Hui Yunshin boasted again, "Also, I said I like bedrooms with sunlight, and Sister Xinyue and Sister Qingxue heard about it and insisted that I live in the master bedroom, so we asked someone to move all your things to the guest room." Gu Yanci tilted his head and looked over. Seeing him move, Ruan Xinyue immediately stood in front of Hui Yunshin and said, "Yunshin is only staying here for a few days. You should be more generous. Besides, you were wrong about what happened last night," but Yunshin didn't pursue it. Since Ruan Xinyue had already spoken, Xin Xingxue didn't want to be left out, so she followed suit and tried to persuade her. "It was Xinyue and I who decided to let Yunshin move in, and we were the ones who had people move into the room. If you're really angry, come after us, don't bully Yunshin." Hearing this, Hui Yunshin was not willing to be outdone and stood in front of the two women. "No, it's not like that, Brother Yanci. Don't blame Sister Xinyue and Sister Qingxue. If you are really angry, blame me. You can beat me or scold me. I can bear it." Looking at the three of them vying to take the blame, Gu Yanci just found it funny. There was no expression on his face, and there was a hint of sarcasm in his tone. "I didn't say anything, how did you decide that I would be angry?" When these words came out, all three of them were stunned. "He isn't angry?" Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue looked at him in surprise, with disbelief in their tone. "You agree? Why don't you agree? This is your house, you can decide for yourself. You don't need to ask for my opinion." Hearing his nonchalant tone, the two of them began to explain in an inexplicable panic. "How come it's our house, Yanci? Have you forgotten that we agreed when we bought it that this villa is a gift from us to you? Yes, your name is also on the property deed. Of course we care about your opinion. I have moved all his stuff away, and now I remember asking for advice." Gu Yanci couldn't help but want to laugh. He stopped talking nonsense with them and nodded indifferently. "Okay, then I agree to let him move in, okay?" Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue looked at each other and saw surprise in each other's eyes. Gu Yanci ignored him and turned back to the guest bedroom. Looking at the mess of things piled on the ground, he stepped over without blinking. He doesn't even want these two women anymore. It's just one bedroom, no big deal. After washing up, Gu Yanci fell asleep. The next day he got up on time to go to work, but met Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue at the door. Two people seemed to be waiting for him. As soon as they saw him appear, they surrounded him, each holding a beautifully wrapped gift in his hand. Yancy, I know you've been angry these past 2 days. We don't mean anything else. It's just that Yunshin has your shadow. Every time we see him, we can't help but think of your suffering in the past. He is as simple and kind as you, so we will take extra care of him. Pure and kind? Gu Yancy smiled. Ruan Xinyue, if you were not the richest man in the world, Xinxinxue, and you were not a prestigious professor, and we were still 3 orphans with nothing, do you think he would stick to you like he does now? Ruan Xinyue and Xinxinxue heard the sarcasm in his words, and their faces turned cold with displeasure in their tone. Yunshen is not the kind of person who despises the poor and loves the rich. Yanci, why do you have to make random assumptions? Yes, he also comes from a humble background, how could he possibly despise us? Hearing the two people's confident tone, Gu Yanci didn't want to waste any more words. He casually put the gift into the cabinet in the entrance hall and turned to walk into the garage. Yes, you are right. I am a mean person. After opening the car door, Gu Yanci had just fastened his seatbelt when the passenger door was suddenly opened. Hua Yinshin jumped up and sat on the seat, greeting him with a smile. Brother Yanci, why are you walking so fast? I almost couldn't catch up with you. Are you going to work alone today? Won't Sister Xinyue and Sister Qingxue send you off? Just now they were competing to send me off, but I didn't want to rely on them too much, so I refused. Good brother, please give me a ride. Gu Yanci didn't bother to pay attention to him and inserted the key. However, Hua Yinshin refused to give in. He got into the car regardless of the danger and sat in the passenger seat. By the way, I heard that they gave you a gift today? They really dote on you. I wish I had 2 childhood sweethearts who loved me so much. Gu Yanci pretended not to hear, stared straight ahead, and was about to start the car. His ignoring attitude made Hua Yunshin angry, but he thought of something, opened his circle of friends with a smile, and handed the phone to him. By the way, Brother Yanci, have you seen the moments I posted today? Gu Yanci glanced at the screen and saw a bunch of photos of gift boxes and a passage of text that smelled of tea. My 2 beautiful sisters gave me so many gifts that I can't use them all. The only things I don't like are this necklace and this scarf. They don't look good. I'd rather tie them on my dog. And today, the gifts that Ruan Xinyue and Xinxinxue gave him were a necklace and a scarf. It turned out that he made such a fuss early in the morning because he wanted to say that he didn't want the gifts they gave him. Gu Yanci finally understood Hua Yunshin's little thoughts. In the past, he would probably be very sad. He didn't understand how the friendship between the 3 of them for so many years could not compare to Hua Yunshin, who had only appeared in their lives for a few months. But now Gu Yanci no longer cared about these things, so he showed no expression. He brushed his hand away with a light tone. Don't bother me while I'm driving. After arriving at the studio on time, Gu Yanci entered his office, called Cici, who had been with him the longest, in, and took out a document from his bag and handed it to her. Cici, you've been with me for 3 years, right? I plan to hand over the management of the studio to you. Hearing this, Cici's eyes showed shock. This studio was founded by Gu Yanci, and all the employees were recruited by him personally. It has gradually grown and developed over the years and can be said to be the result of his painstaking efforts. Was it just handed over to me so carelessly? Cici felt like she was dreaming and couldn't help but ask a few more questions. Why, Brother Yanci, did something happen to you? Gu Yanci lowered his eyes and said nothing more, but said softly, I am going to a very far place and will not be back, so I want to hand the studio to a reliable person. Can you do it? Hearing him say this, Cici didn't ask any more questions and just nodded solemnly. After reading the document carefully and signing her name on the contract cautiously, Cici looked at him with reluctance. Brother Yanci, when are you planning to leave? The finals of the design competition will be held in a few days. Are you still going to participate? We are all waiting for you to win the gold medal. When he heard the word final, Gu Yanci looked at the cabinet full of trophies and was slightly distracted. Because he couldn't afford the tuition, he didn't have the opportunity to go to college. For 4 years, he worked part-time to support 3 people, while inquiring about the class schedule of the design academy and teaching himself design courses by attending classes for free. Over the years, he has made a name for himself in the industry with his amazing works and good reputation, and then he opened his own studio. He has won all kinds of awards, big and small, and only this one is missing to achieve the Grand Slam. To be honest, Gu Yanci would not be willing to give up here. After all, only he himself knows how difficult this journey has been. So in the face of the expectant eyes of this group of juniors, Gu Yanxi made up his mind and agreed to participate in the finals. Win the most authoritative award in the design industry before leaving, and have a beginning and an end. It can be considered as his explanation to himself. On the day of the finals, Gu Yanxi arrived at the competition venue early in the morning. As soon as he reached the door, he saw three familiar figures. Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue were surrounding Hui Yunshin, asking him about his well-being, and when they saw him, Hui Yunshin immediately came up to them with a smile.
Wasn't Hui Yunshin eliminated in the preliminary round? Why are you here?
Perhaps seeing his puzzled look, Hui Yunshin took the initiative to explain with a smile. It was Sister Xinyue who wanted me to see the world, so she invested in this competition and secured a spot for me in the finals.
Brother Yanxi, don't worry. With my level, I can't pose a threat to you. You are the top favorite for the gold medal.
Hearing this, Xin Xingxue raised her hand and tapped his head gently, her tone extremely gentle.
The competition hasn't even started yet, why are you already belittling yourself?
Yunshin, just try your best, I believe you will achieve good results. With her encouragement, Hui Yunshin finally relaxed a little and stuck out his tongue.
With the encouragement and support of talented scientists, good luck will definitely favor me.
Ruan Xinyue started to feel jealous. I also encouraged you, why don't you thank me? Yunshin, you can't favor one over the other. Looking at the three of them chatting animatedly, Gu Yanxi suddenly thought of a few years ago. At that time, it was his first time to participate in a design competition. He had no education and no fame, and he was extremely nervous when he saw the huge crowd of people. At that time, in order to help him relax, Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue turned down the important work at hand and accompanied him from beginning to end. One gave him a massage, and the other kept feeding him and cheering him up, and they were more nervous than he was.
Times have changed and nothing is the same as it was before.
Gu Yanxi smiled, turned around and followed the crowd into the scene.
After 5 hours of competition, he packed up his things and took a taxi home alone.
3 days later, the results of the competition were announced.
Cici called immediately to inform Gu Yanxi of the result.
Brother Yanxi, the first place in this competition goes to your work. These days, Gu Yanxi worked almost all night long and put in a lot of effort for the finals. Fortunately, his hard work was rewarded in the end. Hearing the result, he was about to breathe a sigh of relief when he heard Cici continue to speak haltingly.
But there is a problem with this work now.
The organizer found 2 identical works and suspected that someone copied it.
One copy was signed by you and the other was signed by Hui Yunshin.
Because you have a lot of fans, this matter has caused a sensation on the internet.
Plagiarism?
Gu Yanxi frowned, never expecting Hui Yunshin to have the courage to do such a thing.
He was not panicked. It's okay.
I prepared the entry for this competition for a long time in advance. I have the manuscript to prove my innocence. Unexpectedly, Cici spoke in a panic, hesitating, it's too late.
Public opinion is out of control now.
Brother Yanxi, you will know after looking at the trending searches.
Listening to Cici's increasingly weak voice, Gu Yanxi's heart sank.
After hanging up the phone, he opened Weibo and saw the top trending search hashtag Gu Yanxi plagiarizes hashtag at a glance. He clicked on the first one in disbelief, and what he saw was a video of Hui Yunshin crying and gasping for breath. I'm really not the one who plagiarized in this design competition.
Although I'm just an intern, I would never do such a thing.
I also know that everyone likes Brother Yanxi and wants to clear his suspicion, but please be rational. My entry is original from beginning to end, and I shared inspiration with 2 friends during the creation process.
They can testify for me.
The entire video has no substantial evidence, but has received millions of reposts and comments. It's nothing, it's just because of the 2 people he at. One is the world's richest man Ruan Xinyue, and the other is Nobel Prize winner Xin Xingxue.
Gu Yanxi clicked on the comments and read through them one by one. You said you didn't plagiarize, so you mean you plagiarized Gu Yanxi? Don't blame me, brother. Gu Yanxi has won so many awards. How could he plagiarize a nobody like you? There are 2 friends. Do you know who these 2 people you are?
One is the richest man, and the other is a Nobel Prize winner.
If they were your friends, I would chop off my head and let you kick it like a ball. As I read along, I found mostly sarcasm and abuse.
And amidst the heated abuse, 2 new Weibo posts suddenly broke through the siege and instantly occupied the top position. A message from Ruan Xinyue reposted the video with the caption, I can testify that Hui Yunshin did not plagiarize. Another message came from Xinxingxue, who directly pinned the video on the homepage. I have seen the draft of this work before the competition, and Hui Yunqian did not plagiarize.
After a few seconds, the entire page suddenly froze. Gu Yanci watched helplessly as the word explosive was added before the trending search with his name.
Ruan Xinyue and Xinxingxue actually came forward to testify for Hui Yunqian that he did not plagiarize. In the eyes of the public, this was equivalent to proving that Gu Yanci had plagiarized. For a moment, private messages and push notifications on Weibo popped up like crazy and flooded in.
At first, some people asked whether he was the one who plagiarized.
The new private messages that were pushed later became more and more disgusting, with each one being more outrageous than the last.
After seeing the news, Gu Yanci could no longer remain calm.
With trembling hands, he posted a new Weibo post with only 5 words.
I didn't plagiarize. Within a few seconds, this Weibo post received hundreds of thousands of new replies. You didn't plagiarize? Do you think Professor Shin is giving false testimony?
She has won the Nobel Prize.
How could such a rigorous person lie? Boss Ruan is worth hundreds of billions. Given her status and position, does she need to wrongly accuse you, a designer with hundreds of thousands of fans?
You are a well-known designer, but you actually copied an unknown newcomer.
How shameless. I trusted you before. What a slap in the face. Gu Yanci, get out of the design industry. Gu Yanci, get out of the design industry.
The two people's fans and countless passers-by rushed in, drowning out the explanations of Gu Yanci's pitiful few fans. Just with the support of Ruan Xinyue and Xinxingxue, the reputation of the two people was completely reversed in an instant. The official news has not been released yet, but the entire network has already determined that plagiarism has occurred.
Everyone unanimously agreed that the plagiarist was Gu Yanci, and praised Hui Yunqian for having such high talent at such a young age.
Under pressure from public opinion, the official design competition issued a statement confirming that the gold medal winner of this final was Hui Yunqian.
And Gu Yanci's name was not on the entire list at all. As soon as the statement was released, Gu Yanci's phone was flooded with calls.
The studio sent a message saying that all the partners confirmed a few days ago have proposed to terminate the cooperation. Dozens of projects are facing astronomical compensation amounts and studios are facing dissolution.
This sudden and unexpected disaster left Gu Yanci's mind blank.
He never expected things to develop in this direction. He dropped his unusable cell phone and ran downstairs, contacting Xinxingxue on the landline to ask her why she did this. The phone rang for a long time before it was finally answered. Faced with his unbelievable questioning, Xinxingxue only replied with one sentence. Yunqian is pure and kind, he would never do something like plagiarism.
I must prove it to him.
After saying that, she hung up the phone.
Hearing the busy tone, Gu Yanci felt as if his heart was being pressed down by a heavy rock and he couldn't breathe.
He clenched and unclenched his hands, pressing another number and dialing. Before he could say anything, Ruan Xinyue spoke first. I know what you want to ask by calling. It doesn't matter to me who plagiarized. Yunqian has just entered the industry and really likes being a designer. He still has a long way to go in the future. I don't want his future to be ruined, so I have to stand by his side. Hearing these words, Gu Yanci felt like his entire chest was about to explode.
So you don't know the truth at all? Why would you clarify it for him if you don't know the truth? His future cannot be ruined, but what about me? Do you know how much I have paid to get to where I am today?
I didn't go to college, I don't have any background, I stayed up late every day drawing pictures until late at night, and only then did I achieve what I have today, but because of your two casual words, it's all ruined.
Didn't you say at the beginning that you would always support my dream? Is this how you support me?
His face was full of pain and his voice was sharp and desperate.
Finally, I couldn't hold it in anymore and burst into tears.
There was silence on the other end of the phone for a long time before Ruan Xinyue's helpless and tired voice was heard.
Yanci, you still have me and Xinxingxue. We will be responsible for you. What a responsible word. What a responsible phrase. Is this the reason why they want to destroy him? When did he, Gu Yanci, rely on them for support? When did he let them take responsibility?
He cried and actually laughed with tears in his eyes. He hung up the phone, collapsed on the sofa, and watched the sky gradually darken outside the window.
The sun sets. Gu Yanci's life also came to an end. In the next few days, various institutions in the industry issued statements one after another, announcing the termination of cooperation with Gu Yanci's studio. Overnight, the industry's top studio, which was once in the limelight and thriving, disappeared.
All his years of hard work were destroyed in an instant. Gu Yanxi was unwilling to accept this reality, but he had no choice but to accept it.
He ran around and used many connections before he finally solved the project problem.
In order not to drag down his employees, he announced the dissolution of the studio and then used the savings he had accumulated over the years to compensate everyone.
After the last person left, Gu Yanxi stood alone in the empty room, looking around. When I came, I was alone. When I left, I was alone.
He laughed at himself, lowered his eyes full of disappointment, and walked out of the studio step by step.
The urinary tract infection in the urinary tract was treated by the doctor. The latest news is broadcast day and night on the large screen in the center of the square.
When Gu Yanxi looked up, he saw the live broadcast of the award ceremony of the design competition finals. Xin Xingxue and Ruan Xinyue stood in the center of the stage, beautiful and elegant, smiling as they looked at Hui Yunshan, who was holding the trophy in flowers and accepting congratulations from thousands of people. Because of the two award presenters, the popularity of the live broadcast in the upper left corner reached tens of millions. Under the gaze of countless people, Hui Yunshan's eyes turned red again, and he sobbed as he gave his acceptance speech. As a newcomer, it is a great honor for me to receive this award.
I thought I would never get my own work back. Thank you, Mr. Ruan and Professor Shen, and thank you everyone.
Looking at his hypocritical appearance, Gu Yanxi felt so disgusted that he almost vomited on the spot.
He hailed a car and went to the riverside.
The wind had been blowing for a long time before it finally subsided. In the early morning, he turned on his phone, which had been turned off for several days, and saw a red call log. There were dozens of missed calls, all from Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue.
There were also hundreds of unread messages on WeChat. He was about to clear them all when he heard a familiar voice behind him. Yanxi, why didn't you answer the phone? It's Xin Xingxue.
Ruan Xinyue followed behind him, and two people rushed over with anxious looks on their faces and grabbed his hands.
It's so late, why don't you go home? Are you still angry with us? Do you know that we have been looking for you for 3 hours?
I was so scared that my heart stopped beating. Looking at the two people talking to each other with concern on their faces, Gu Yanxi took a few steps back, distanced himself from them, and his face was extremely cold.
Looking for me? On such a happy day, shouldn't you be with Hui Yunshan to celebrate the occasion? Seeing his resistance, the two men's expressions froze slightly. Ruan Xinyue sighed and explained a few words in a lowered voice. Yanxi, stop making trouble. We treat Yunshan well because we think he is like you.
If we had the ability to protect you back then, you wouldn't have suffered so much.
Compensating Yunshan is compensating you for your childhood. That's all. Please stop imagining it, okay?
Seeing that the two people were still trying their best to defend themselves, Gu Yanxi raised the corner of his mouth into a sarcastic smile.
He, Gu Yanxi, was standing right in front of them, but they wanted to compensate Hui Yunshan?
What a huge joke. If you want to pity him, pity him.
Don't bring me into this.
I am not the same kind of person as Hui Yunshan, a white lotus. Hearing how he resisted Hui Yunshan, Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue's faces could no longer hold back and became a little gloomy, and they spoke for him in unison.
Yanxi, if you have any dissatisfaction, just vent it to us. Can you please not embarrass a little boy like him?
Gu Yanxi's ears are so calloused from hearing these words. He didn't want to get involved with them anymore, so he hailed a taxi and told them the name of the hotel.
The two people insisted on getting into the car. Ruan Xinyue insisted that the driver change the destination, while Xin Xingxue kept nagging in his ear. Yanxi, we know you are unhappy, so we have asked Yunshan to move out. Can you come back with us? If you don't come with us today, we will buy whichever building you go to. You know we have the power to do it. No matter where you go, we will follow you.
Gu Yanxi no longer had the energy to argue with them. He closed his red eyes and looked at the countdown to the last 7 days on the system panel.
Wherever he goes, they follow? It's a pity that's where he ended up. I'm afraid that Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue will never be found.
The taxi finally drove back to the villa halfway up the mountain.
Gu Yanxi said nothing, went straight upstairs to his room and ignored them.
After returning home, perhaps feeling indebted, Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue tacitly turned down all their work and stayed at home to take care of him. She prepared 3 meals a day herself, sent him countless luxury goods and jewelry gifts, and tried every way to make him happy. The way they looked at him was as if they had gone back to a long time ago, when Hui Yunshan had not yet appeared. But facing the two people who were courting him, Gu Yanxi didn't react at all and just counted down the days silently. That day, when Gu Yanxi woke up, he saw the living room full of people. Seeing that he was awake, Shen Xingxue walked up to him very gently and said, Yanxi, you have been very unhappy staying at home recently. We have organized a party for you to relax. We have arranged a costume designer and a stylist for you. You don't have to worry about anything. Just dress up handsomely and show up on time. Gu Yanxi didn't want to go to any party. He just wanted to leave as soon as possible. But just as he was about to refuse, Ruan Xinyue stood up and tried to persuade him. He couldn't bear it anymore and just let them do whatever they wanted. By the time he finished putting on his makeup, it was already evening. He walked into the garage, and when he was a few steps away from getting into his car, he heard the conversation between the two drivers. I heard that Mr. Ruan and Professor Shen proposed tonight. Who do you think Mr. Gu will agree to? Gu Yanxi stopped where he was. Proposal? Ruan Xinyue and Shen Xingxue are actually going to propose to him today? When he heard the news, he didn't feel happy, but only absurd. But when he arrived at the banquet, looking at the roses piled up in the hall and listening to the whispers of the male lead is here coming from all directions, Gu Yanxi realized that they were actually serious. He was about to escape when the next second, romantic piano music suddenly sounded in the originally quiet hall. Ruan Xinyue was wearing a purple dress and Shen Xingxue was wearing a white evening gown, and they appeared under the spotlight. The two people, each holding a bouquet of flowers and a diamond ring, walked up to Gu Yanxi at the same time. Just as the two men were about to kneel down, a series of footsteps suddenly sounded at the door. The two of them turned around at the same time and saw Hui Yunshan, who was soaked all over, appearing at the scene holding a box of cakes. The excitement and surprise in his eyes turned into shock and sadness after he saw what they were holding in their hands. Ruan Xinyue was surprised why he was here. Yunshan, why are you here? And you're so wet? Hearing her voice, Hui Yunshan's eyes suddenly turned red. A few days ago, I heard you and Sister Qingxue say that you wanted to eat the cakes next to the orphanage, so I ran over to buy them and sent them to you. Unexpectedly, it suddenly rained heavily. I didn't bring an umbrella, so I brought the cakes all the way here. I just wanted you to eat them quickly, but I didn't expect you to. I'm sorry to bother you. His voice became weaker and weaker, and finally he began to cry. As soon as he finished speaking, tears began to flow like rain. He covered his mouth, turned around and ran out. This sudden scene stunned everyone present. Ruan Xinyue was the first to react. Her expression changed and she immediately stuffed the flowers and ring box in her hand into Gu Yanxi's hands, then turned around and chased after him. Seeing her leave, Shen Xingxue quickly handed all the things to Gu Yanxi, left only a few words and left. Yanxi, wait for me, we will be back soon. Gu Yanxi was unwilling to wait, and didn't want to wait. He walked out of the hotel. It was drizzling outside. The street lights were lit up one after another, clearly illuminating the three figures tugging at the side of the road. As soon as he walked out of the door, he heard Hui Yunshan's sobbing voice. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your proposal. I know you all like Brother Yanxi, but I really can't control myself. Sister Xinyue, Sister Qingxue, I ruined your proposal. Gu Yanxi has become addicted to the aroma of tea over the past month. He couldn't bear it any longer and called out Hui Yunshan, and then in front of the three people's astonished eyes, he threw the four things in his hands at him. Don't you just want these things? I'll give them all to you three. Stop crying here, okay? You're ruining the city. After saying this, he turned around and was about to leave without even looking at their expressions. Ruan Xinyue and Shen Xingxue's faces suddenly turned dark, and they stepped forward to block his way. Yanxi, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by fulfilling the three of us? Don't be silly, Yanxi. We have no feelings towards Yunshan. We sincerely want to beg you today. Before he could finish his last sentence, he was interrupted by Hui Yunshan's scream. The four of them turned around at the same time and saw an electric bike with a brake failure, rushing straight towards them. In a flash, Ruan Xinyue and Shen Xingxue rushed over to protect Hui Yunshan and pulled him to a safe area. Gu Yanxi was the only one left, and was hit by a car and thrown 10 meters away amid the increasingly rapid sound of rain and drums. Blood was all over his white suit pants. From a distance, it looks like it is covered with rose petals. Warm and romantic. Gu Yanxi's calf was shattered and there was a hideous, bloody wound on his back. When he woke up again, he found himself in the hospital with only Hui Yunshan by his side. Seeing that he woke up, Hui Yunshan immediately came forward.
Brother Yancy, are you okay? I didn't expect Sister Xin Yue and Sister Qing Xue would come to protect me last night.
It must be because they knew that I was timid since I was a child and were afraid that I would get hurt, so they neglected you.
Please don't be angry, okay?
The pain in his legs came slowly, and Gu Yancy didn't have the energy to listen to his sarcastic words. Just as he was about to ask the nurse to change the bandage, his peripheral vision caught sight of the two amulets hanging around his neck. He looked closely and found that it was exactly the same amulet he had obtained for Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue at Shijiao Temple 10 years ago.
He suddenly grabbed Hui Yunshan's hand and asked, "What is that hanging around your neck?"
Seeing that he cared, Hui Yunshan held it up in front of him with a proud look on his face.
This was given to me by Sister Xin Yue and Sister Qing Xue a few days ago. Halfway through his conversation, Wan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue pushed the door and walked in.
Seeing Gu Yancy holding the two amulets, their expressions changed slightly and they hurriedly began to explain.
Yancy, don't misunderstand. It's not what you think.
Xin Xingxue and I are both the richest man and a professor respectively.
We are surrounded by people and protected by countless people every day. Nothing will happen to us.
Yunshin is in poor health, so we decided to give him this amulet. Yes, what happened last night happened suddenly.
We didn't protect you well.
It was our negligence.
We promise that there will never be a next time. If you are angry, just vent it on us. Don't let your imagination run wild, okay? Gu Yancy was tired of hearing these specious excuses.
When faced with a life or death situation, people react instinctively to protect something more important in their subconscious mind. The reason they abandoned him was simply that he was no longer the most important and caring person in their hearts. Why bother saying so many repetitive words to deceive others and yourself? He put down the amulet with a wry smile, and his tone finally sounded weak. If you want to give, just give. Anyway, he was leaving. During the days that Gu Yancy was in the hospital, Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue took turns to stay with him in the hospital. 3 meals a day were delivered to his bedside on time, with a combination of meat and vegetables, and full nutrition when he fell asleep at night. There were people staying up all night by his bedside, fearing that he would bump into the wound in his dreams when he was reading a magazine. His eyes stayed on a certain object for a few seconds longer, and the food was delivered to the hospital the next day. After a few days of rest, Gu Yancy's wounds slowly healed. However, they were absent on the day of discharge. Ruan Xinyue's secretary and Xin Xingxue's assistant lowered their heads respectfully and each found an impeccable excuse for their boss. Gu Yancy said nothing. He followed them out of the hospital and got on the car to go home. As soon as he got in the car, he saw Hui Yunshan's latest circle of friends. I went to the orphanage to show my love, and something accidentally hit my calf. It hurts so much, oh. He no longer pursued what Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue were doing and closed his eyes. The system panel shows that there are only 3 days left in this world. 3 days before the countdown, Gu Yancy decided to destroy all traces of himself in this world. He went to several schools and rubbed off the words carved on the tables and walls. Then he went back to the orphanage, dug out the wish box buried under the tree, and tore it up. Then I went to the temple, untied the lock I had put on it a few years ago, and threw it into the trash can. Gu Yancy went back to all the places where the 3 of them had left their footprints. Then, I destroyed those memories that I once considered the most beautiful ones one by one with my own hands. No trace was left. 2 days before the countdown, Gu Yancy cleaned out everything in the house. He packed up all the things that Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue gave him and donated them to the orphanage. He also threw into the fire without hesitation all the photos that the 3 of them had taken together over the years. The joy of playing in the water together in the heavy rain, the anticipation of waiting for the sunrise together on the top of the mountain, the excitement of getting the first salary and eating Western food. The moment those bright smiling faces were engulfed by flames, the memories that once moved him to tears disappeared just like that. This villa, which carried their past, gradually became empty. Gu Yancy looked around, walked to the balcony and looked at the blooming spring scenery in the garden downstairs. He couldn't help but think of Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue busy in the garden. At that time, he loved roses very much, so the 2 of them personally planted roses in his yard. I still remember that day when the sun was shining brightly, the 3 of them stood together among the blooming roses. You love to chat and I love to laugh, the wind was blowing in the treetops and the birds were singing. The roses are in full bloom now, but the love is no longer there. The flowers are the same year after year, but the people are different year after year. Who knows how many flowers have fallen in my dreams? He chuckled, lit the fire stick in his hand and threw it down. These branches carrying romance and love were burned to ashes in the fire. On the last day of the countdown, Gu Yanxi called a housekeeping company to take away all the things related to him. After everyone left, he logged out of all accounts and pressed the factory reset button on his phone. As the phone restarted, the doorbell rang. He stood up and opened the door, and Hui Yunshin greeted him with a smile. "Brother Yanxi, what have you been busy with these days? Why can't I see you around? Sister Xin Yue and Sister Qing Xue didn't go home for me. You must be jealous, angry, and envious, right?" Perhaps because he was about to leave, facing Hui Yunshin's provocation, Gu Yanxi could only remain calm. "Why should I be jealous, angry, and envious?" Seeing his expressionless face, Hui Yunshin thought he was pretending and became more and more proud. "Of course it's because the world's richest man and genius scientist are all around me now." "The richest man? A genius?" Gu Yanxi looked at the countdown to the last 15 minutes and shook his head. "Not anytime soon." "No? What's not?" Hui Yunshin didn't understand what he said and wanted to ask for clarification, but Gu Yanxi ignored him and turned to go upstairs. Seeing his expression, Hui Yunshin felt a surge of anger in his heart. Just as he was about to chase him, he suddenly heard footsteps coming from outside the door. He rolled his eyes and came up with an idea. He stepped forward and grabbed Gu Yanxi's hand, pretending to be pushed down by him. The moment he fell to the ground, the door of the villa was pushed open. Seeing Hui Yunshin's forehead hit the corner of the table and fresh red blood oozing out, Ruan Xinyue and Shin Xingxue rushed over immediately. While he hugged Hui Yunshin, who was crying bitterly, with eyes full of heartache, he looked at Gu Yanxi with extreme disappointment. "We have explained that we have no such intention towards Yun Shen. Why do you want to hurt Yun Shen again and again?" Hearing the two people's questions in unison, Gu Yanxi's eyes were calm and his tone was light. "He faked the fall himself, it has nothing to do with me. Instead of questioning me, why don't you question why he loves to act so much?" Seeing that he refused to admit it, the two men's faces instantly became extremely gloomy. "Acting? Yun Shen has been taking care of the children in the orphanage these days, doing everything himself. He is so kind, but you say he is acting? He is acting, and he even hurt himself on purpose. What is he trying to achieve?" Gu Yanxi smiled coldly. "What do you want?" "Of course, it's for your President Ruan's money, for your Professor Shin's reputation, and for the two of you to revolve around him. Ruan Xinyue, Shin Xingxue, ask yourself, if you had nothing, do you think he would stick to you every day like he does now?" Upon hearing this, the two people immediately denied it, and their rebuttal tone was extremely firm. "Of course. Yun Shen is not that kind of person at all." When Hui Yunshin, who was crying nearby, heard this, he immediately cooperated and cried out in pain. Hearing his crying, the two men no longer had the energy to argue with Gu Yanxi. They turned around and rushed out the door, holding him. Only Gu Yanxi was left watching their backs gradually walking away, smiling to himself. "Ruan Xinyue, Shin Xingxue, you will soon find out whether he is that kind of person." After they completely disappeared, he turned his attention to the sofa. There were two cell phones on it, belonging to Ruan Xinyue and Shin Xingxue. Because they were so worried about Hui Yunshin, they didn't even take their cell phones with them. Gu Yanxi picked up their phones, entered the password to unlock them, and directly deleted all the photos of him in their albums. From now on, there will no longer be Gu Yanxi in their world. After doing all this, he sat on the sofa, closed his eyes, and summoned the system, take me home. The next second, a cold mechanical sound rang out in the living room. Okay, the host Gu Yanxi has left the world, and the system is taking away the two items you agreed on. Congratulations! Ruan Xinyue's wealth has been successfully taken away. Congratulations! Shin Xingxue's IQ has been successfully taken away. 10 seconds later, the people in the room disappeared, the sports car outside the villa also disappeared, and the press stop button restarted. Shin Xingxue, who was holding Hui Yunshin, and Ruan Xinyue, who was driving, lost the support of their seats and fell directly to the ground. When the pain was transmitted to the brain center through nerve endings, they slowly woke up. Looking at the unobstructed scenery around them and the suddenly disappearing sports car, the three of them stood there in a daze, and they saw disbelief in each other's eyes. Aren't they driving to the hospital? Where is the car? How come he suddenly disappeared out of thin air? Is this some new type of paranormal activity? This bizarre scene shocked Hui Yunshin so much that he forgot for a moment the injury scene he had just directed and stood up by supporting himself on the ground. What on earth is going on? This sentence is the common voice of the three people.
It also awakened Wan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue, who were shocked to the point of being speechless. The two people's eyes met in the air and finally fell on Hui Yunchen. The confusion in their eyes was slowly replaced by surprise. Yun Chen, aren't you injured? Hearing Xin Xingxue's unexpected tone, Hui Yunchen realized that he had been exposed. He quickly pretended to be dizzy, staggered to the ground, and uttered some weak sounds. Yes, it hurts a lot, Sister Xingxue, let's hurry to the hospital. Wan Xinyue was the first to react. She got up and went back to the villa, preparing to drive another car over. Losing the car is a small matter and can be investigated later. The most urgent thing now is to go to the hospital. Hui Yunchen's health is important. But when she walked to the front of the villa and tried to open the door lock with her fingerprint, the door lock seemed to be broken and kept making a beeping warning sound. After trying more than 10 times and failing to open it, Wan Xinyue's patience was exhausted and she called the two people behind her over. After hearing this, Xin Xingxue quickly tried using her own fingerprint, but still couldn't unlock it. After many trials and errors, they directly alarmed the security guards of the villa area. More than a dozen people surrounded them and arrested them like thieves. On the way to the security room, the three people kept arguing and trying to explain that they were indeed the owners of the villa. However, after a background check, it was found that the villa was vacant and had no owner. This result shocked Wan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue beyond words. They checked and confirmed the query again and again, and even argued with the security team, firmly believing that there was a problem with the system. The security guards didn't want to deal with these three unreasonable people and directly handed them over to the police as suspected thefts. Even when she was in front of the police, Wan Xinyue remained fearless and directly reported her identity. I am Wan Xinyue, CEO of Bai Group. The villa is indeed under my name. You have arrested the wrong person. The policemen looked at each other and frowned. Bai Group? What kind of company is that? Have you ever heard of it? A fraud group, right? Faced with the police's suspicious eyes, Wan Xinyue's patience was completely exhausted, and her tone was filled with uncontrollable anger. I'm the richest man in the world, don't you know that? As soon as these words came out, all the police officers in the police station looked over at him with mocking eyes, as if he were a fool. The richest man in the world? Isn't Mr. Ma Huayu the richest man? Are these sisters suffering from delusional disorder? I think this is some new type of fraud. Let's investigate it carefully. Hearing these whispers, the three of them were stunned. Wan Xinyue is still alive. When did Ma Huayu become the richest man? Xin Xingxue was somewhat unable to accept everything that happened in this half hour. She took a deep breath, walked forward and introduced herself. I am Xin Xingxue, the winner of the 124th Nobel Prize in Mathematics. I think everyone should be able to believe what I say, right? Upon hearing this, the policewoman who was sipping tea spat out the tea directly onto the computer screen, and the whole room was filled with a happy atmosphere. Nobel Prize? What prize? Mathematics prize? Sister, are you still asleep? You're the second person to say there's a Nobel Prize in mathematics, ha 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 ha. Until they left the police station, Wan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue still didn't understand what had happened in the past few hours. How did they suddenly fall from being the proud children of the sky, surrounded by stars, to being orphans who dropped out of college? Neither of them could accept this reality and they collapsed to the ground, their eyes empty and lifeless, their bodies covered in cold sweat. Hui Yunchen had not yet recovered from his surprise. But he has always been indomitable, so in the face of this reality that cannot be explained by common sense, he still has a glimmer of hope. He didn't bother to pretend to be sick anymore. He squatted down, held the two people's hands, and cheered them up. Sister Xinyue, Sister Xingxue, these police officers probably don't use the internet at all, so they don't know you. Please contact the assistants and secretaries and let them handle these matters. Hearing this, the two finally regained some hope. But when he felt his pockets, he found that his cell phones were all on him, so Hui Yunchen lent them his. Xin Xingxue first called her assistant, but the number that was originally on standby 24 hours a day became an empty number and she couldn't get through. Seeing this, Wan Xinyue quickly took the phone and called his secretary. The call was connected, but after hearing what he said, the person on the other end cursed him impatiently. What are you talking about, Mr. Wan and Mr. Qian? Anyone can be a CEO these days, right? Do you think you're the heroine in a romance novel? How dare you order me around? What the hell are you doing? With a beep, the call was hung up. Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue felt dizzy after being provoked and ridiculed by the security guards, police officers, secretaries, and assistants one after another. They placed their last hope on Gu Yanxi. After pressing the dial button, the three of them stared at the screen intently, swallowing nervously. After more than 10 seconds of beeping, the call was connected, but the voice that came through was not the boy they were familiar with, but a cold mechanical voice. "Hello, this is system number 1693-865-0290. What service do you want to consult?" "System? What system? Isn't this Gu Yanxi's phone number?" The three people were all confused and thought they had dialed the wrong number, so they quickly hung up and called again. But no matter how many times I dialed, it was always the same mechanical tone. These continuous blows have made Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue numb. Only Hui Yunshan had not given up. He stopped a car and wanted to take them back to his rental house first, trying to restore their confidence along the way. It's okay, Sister Xinyue, Sister Qingxue, something must have gone wrong, you should have a good rest first, everything will be back to normal tomorrow. I wake up from sleep after sleep, day after day passes, and this upside-down world remains unchanged. The richest man is still Ma Huayu, there is no Nobel Prize in mathematics, and Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue are always just two unknown vagrants. Those business tycoons who once treated Ruan Xinyue as brothers and sisters, now she can't even meet them, let alone contact them. Those mathematical formulas that once bestowed supreme glory on Xin Xingxue have now become a mixture of English and numbers that she cannot understand at all. What was even more unbearable for them was the disappearance of Gu Yanxi. Apart from them and Hui Yunshan, no one else remembered this designer who was once famous but whose reputation was ruined overnight. It was as if he had never existed in this world. He evaporated like rain or fog, leaving no trace behind. Compared with the ups and downs of life that were like falling from the clouds to the mortal world in one day, Gu Yanxi's departure was obviously a heavier blow to Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue, and more difficult to accept. The two of them searched the world for his traces like crazy. The orphanage where we huddled together for warmth, the campus where we spent our youth together, the mountaintop temples we visited, the villa where we lived for 2 years. They tried their best to investigate every place related to Gu Yanxi in the past. In the end, all I saw were empty wishing bottles, scraped walls and tabletops, lost iron locks, and a burnt garden. After being disappointed again and again, Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue became confused, as if they were seeing flowers in the fog. Could it be that Gu Yanxi and everything in the past were really as others said? Is it just a long but real dream in their lives? The one who could not accept their dilapidated reality even more than Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue was Hui Yunshan. At first, he still had some delusion that they would make a comeback, so he put the stock market situation and 3 major mathematical conjectures in front of them, trying to get them to regain their glory. But reality slapped him hard in the face. There was no brilliance in the eyes of the two people, only endless confusion. He hoped so much that all this was an illusion, that they could return to the peak of their lives, and that the things he snatched from Gu Yanxi still had value. The fact is, everything he saw was real, and they had no way of regaining their former wealth and fame. What he snatched from Gu Yanxi were just 2 poor girls. These 2 poor girls ate and drank his food and were still thinking about Gu Yanxi, who had disappeared for some reason. This was really unacceptable to Hui Yunshan. When you can no longer endure it, there is no need to endure it anymore. After making sure that what was done was irreversible and everything was a foregone conclusion, Hui Yunshan kicked Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue out on a slightly cold night. Before slamming the door, he poured out all the dissatisfaction that had been accumulating in his heart for days. I am so unlucky to have met you guys. These days I have been drinking and smoking, doing nothing, and squandering all my savings. Since you are so obsessed with Gu Yanxi, then go out and find him. See if he is willing to take over you 2 losers. It was not until this moment that Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue finally understood. What Gu Yanxi said was all right. Hui Yunshan was indeed different from what they imagined. He was really just greedy for their wealth and fame. And when they return to their status as poor people and can no longer provide him with any benefits, he will tear off the hypocritical skin covering his face and reveal his true face. But they can't blame anyone. If they have to hate someone, they can only hate themselves for not knowing people well enough. 2 homeless women who had completely lost their homes were wandering the streets. His hair was messy like weeds, his face was dirty, he was wearing washed-out clothes and a few dollar slippers, and his whole body exuded a heavy, dead air. There is no trace of the high-spirited, arrogant, and conceited look he had a month ago. I don't know how long they wandered. The 2 of them took half a bottle of white wine they borrowed from the barbecue stall, sat on the river beach, and sighed at the moon.
At this moment, Ruan Xinyue and Shin Xingxue had the same thoughts again and thought of the person they had not heard from for a long time.
Where did Yin Ci go? How could such a good person disappear inexplicably?
I miss him so much. I miss him smiling and comforting us that everything will pass. I miss his courage in standing in front of us without hesitation.
I miss the days he spent with us.
The pain of separation, the ache of missing each other, and the regret of sudden realization hung over Ruan Xinyue and Shin Xingxue's hearts like a dark cloud that could no longer be dispelled. The two frustrated people could only drown their sorrows in alcohol, trying to numb their nerves. But after getting drunk, Gu Yanxi's face appeared in the clouds and the moon, becoming clearer and clearer, making both of them feel dazed.
For a moment, they couldn't tell what was true and what was false.
Shin Xingxue, with misty eyes, took out the mobile phone she found in the empty villa and dialed the familiar number again. After the call was connected, the same mechanical voice broadcast that they were tired of hearing still appeared. Maybe she was drunk, she didn't hang up the phone, but started talking a lot of nonsense.
Yanci, where have you been? Are you so cruel to abandon Xingxue and me? Didn't you say that you would stay with us no matter what happens? Why did you break your promise?
The system detected this long string of words, successfully extracted the keywords, and conducted a situation analysis. After testing, it is suspected that a bug occurred when the system was restarted. The faulty code was not repaired in time. The memories of the target persons Ruan Xinyue, Shin Xingxue, and Hua Yunshan were not cleared.
Danger warning, warning.
After analysis by the think tank, there are too many bugs in this world. If it is restarted again, the system will face the risk of collapse. The solution given by the think tank is to transfer the 3 target characters to another world. The system has received instructions and is about to activate the time-space shuttle function to transfer the 3 target persons in Tantal time and space to Verita time and space.
The countdown is 10, 9, 8, 7. The drunk Shin Xingxue couldn't understand these strange words.
But he still maintained his sensitivity to numbers and counted down along with them.
6, 5, 4.
Ruan Xinyue, who was also unconscious nearby, heard this and joined the final countdown.
3, 2, 1.
The moment the words fell, 2 white lights flashed simultaneously on the deserted riverside and in the dark rental house.
The 3 parties involved were completely unaware.
When Hua Yunshan opened his eyes again, it was already noon. He slept for 12 hours, but when he woke up he was still groggy and couldn't muster any energy. After finally getting out of bed, he turned on TikTok while brushing his teeth. Bai Group announced that it has signed the copyright of the work of the famous martial arts master Yin Rong and will enter the game industry to develop a.
At first, Hua Yunshan didn't take it seriously.
But when the cold water entered his mouth, his slow brain finally came to its senses.
What group? Bai Group? Isn't this Ruan Xinyue's business empire that was once prosperous and then suddenly disappeared? Is he dreaming?
Hua Yunshan slapped his face hard several times, not even bothering to wipe the water off his hands, and picked up his phone to scroll to the previous post. It was not until he heard the 4 words by E Group in clear pronunciation and saw the familiar shining building logo on the screen that he was finally sure that this was not a dream. To be precise, he had some strange dreams a few days ago.
If Bai Group is still there, then Ruan Xinyue will still be the wealthy president, Shin Xingxue will still be the genius scientist admired by everyone, and he won't have to live this kind of life as a social animal who eats vegetarian food every day and works a few jobs?
Thinking of this, Hua Yunshan became excited and turned around several times on the spot. He put down the toothbrush in his hand with excitement, opened the address book with joy, and called Ruan Xinyue. After a long period of beeping, a deep, sleepy voice reached my ears.
Hello? Who is this?
Hearing this extremely annoying sound from last night again now, Hua Yunshan felt it was like the sound of nature. He cleared his throat, regained the voice he had painstakingly trained a month ago, and spoke softly.
Sister Xinyue, it's me. Are you guys home now? I want to come over to see you. Do you need me to bring some breakfast?
There was silence on the other end of the phone for a long time, so long that Hua Yunshan thought the other party had fallen asleep again, before a few incoherent words came through.
Yes, by the river. Riverside? You went to the riverside to exercise early in the morning before you even woke up?
He is worthy of being the richest man, with such perseverance, self-awareness, and willpower. Hua Yunshan sighed a few words in his heart, quickly took out the suit that he had kept in the bottom of the box, did his hair beautifully, gritted his teeth, used the last few $100 he had to order 2 breakfasts from a Western restaurant, and hurried to the riverside excitedly. But after walking along the sidewalk for a long time, he didn't see anyone. Just when he was about to lose heart, he suddenly caught a glimpse of two people sleeping soundly on the pebble beach by the river.
From a distance, she seems very similar to Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue. But why is it the impoverished version? Where are the richest man and the scientist?
In the months since returning to his original world, Gu Yanxi has slowly gotten used to his dual identities as the world's richest man and Nobel Prize winner in economics. Living in a villa on the hillside of Shangyun Mountain, which has the best view in northern Beijing, eating breakfast served by a 5-star Michelin chef, escorted by bodyguards, and receiving a 90-degree bow from everyone he saw,
Gu Yanxi couldn't help but sigh at the drastic changes in his life.
If he could live his life over again and return to that world, he would never do such a foolish thing as saving Fengchen again. Stupid, really stupid. Fortunately, he now has an extremely high IQ of 180 and endless blessings, so he will never be blinded by petty love again. Why should he spend the 20,000 points he had worked hard for 20 years on two ungrateful people? Use this money to enjoy yourself and satisfy your desire to be the richest man or a genius.
It's really refreshing. While reminiscing about the past, Gu Yanxi picked up a financial weekly and studied the recent economic situation.
After finishing the coffee in his hand, the assistant came over with his coat and reported on today's work schedule.
Mr. Gu, there is a video conference at 10 a.m. and an interview at 1 p.m.
Although the schedule was busy, Gu Yanxi did not feel tired because of the well-organized and relaxed schedule. Before the live interview began, his mobile phone number seemed to have been leaked and he received many strange calls. After the assistant reported the matter, he didn't take it seriously and asked the assistant to change the number. After checking in the mirror one last time that his makeup and clothes were correct, he walked into the interview room watched by hundreds of millions of fans with a proper smile.
Hello everyone, I am Gu Yanxi, CEO of Bai Group.
Looking at the person who suddenly appeared on the LED screen, Ruan Xinyue, Xin Xingxue and Hui Yunchen, who were still arguing by the river, were stunned. The three people had the same expression, their faces were full of shock, their lips were slightly open in fear, and their eyes were wide open. The face that they would never forget, the voice that they would never forget, and the three particularly obvious words Gu Yanxi all told them that this was not a dream.
The CEO of Bai Group, who they just found out suddenly disappeared and reappeared, the person with the same name and surname as Gu Yanxi, was Gu Yanxi himself. What exactly happened? Why did he replace Ruan Xinyue and become the person in charge of Bai Group? The three of them rubbed their eyes in tacit understanding, and began to doubt whether what they saw was an illusion. But even though my eyes were about to bleed, the person on the screen didn't change. Only then did they realize that everything they had experienced over the past month was real. Faced with this reality that could not be explained by science, Ruan Xinyue, Xin Xingxue and Hui Yunchen all felt mixed emotions. For Hui Yunchen, the bright future that he had held in his hands turned into quicksand in an instant. He felt pessimistic, desperate, and angry. Besides that, he also felt jealousy and envy towards his rival. As for Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue, all that they had lost is now back. It has not fallen into the hands of others, but into the hands of Gu Yanxi, who grew up with them and was willing to risk his life for them. They are confused and fortunate, and besides that, they also feel a sense of emotion of regaining what they had lost. They firmly believe that no matter what happened, Gu Yanxi would always stand by them. So they didn't hesitate for a moment, hailed a taxi, and went straight to the TV station. Looking at their hurriedly leaving backs, Hui Yunchen had already guessed what they were going to do. He was unwilling to accept that the results of his 2 months of hard work had gone to waste, so he gritted his teeth, hailed a taxi and chased after him. When the two cars stopped outside the TV station building, Gu Yanxi's interview had just ended. He was surrounded by bodyguards and walked slowly outside amid the cheers of enthusiastic fans. As soon as he walked out of the door, he saw 3 figures running towards him from a distance. It seems like they are a few acquaintances? When he got closer and saw the 3 familiar faces, a strange emotion flashed in Gu Yanxi's eyes behind his sunglasses. Didn't he return to his own time and space? Why are Ruan Xinyue, Xin Xingxue, and Hui Yunchen here? Could it be that people like them also exist in this time and space? That's really unlucky. Thinking of this, Gu Yanxi began to regret forgetting to check the almanac before going out this morning. He also didn't bother to accompany fans to sign autographs or take photos, and hurriedly got into the car. Just as the car door closed, Ruan Xinyue rushed up and hugged the car door, calling out his name with a flushed face and panting. Yanxi, where have you been these days? Then Xin Xingxue arrived and started playing the emotional card. Yanxi, why did you leave without even saying hello? Do you know how worried we are? Hearing this familiar way of speaking, Gu Yanxi also confirmed one thing. These two people don't just look like knockoffs, they seem to be the real people. In his heart, he cursed the unreliable system, but he still maintained a calm smile on his face. He spoke calmly, not responding to them, but directly calling the bodyguards. "Bodyguard, please ask all irrelevant people to leave the venue, thank you." On the way here, Wan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue had imagined thousands of reunion scenes, but they never thought it would be like this. A myriad of thoughts ran through the two men's minds, and they guessed at many possibilities, but they tacitly stuck their hands on the window. Faced with the pulling and forcible pulling of a dozen bodyguards, they refused to let go, and kept introducing themselves in an attempt to awaken Gu Yanxi's memory. "Yanxi, I'm Xin Yuat, don't you remember me? We grew up together. We three have known each other since childhood. Yanxi, look at me, I am Xin Xingxue." Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the onlookers became excited at this sudden farce and took out their mobile phones to take pictures. Gu Yanxi didn't expect that these bodyguards were just there to do nothing. They couldn't even hold back two women, and his face turned cold. He is now a public figure, and his every word, action, and move will become a hot topic and cause widespread discussion. Having experienced the online violence in his previous life, he deeply realized the importance of public opinion, so when he saw that the situation was about to get out of control, he made a prompt decision to get out of the car from the other side, and then asked someone to take Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue, who refused to let go, to the car. The alert secretary understood his boss's intention instantly. He opened the door of the car behind and sent his boss up, while contacting people to deal with the scene. A few minutes later, the blocked intersection was cleared, and more than a dozen sports cars drove away from the scene and sped towards the headquarters of Bai Group. Before he even got out of the car, Gu Yanxi had already seen what had just happened on the internet. These media outlets are accustomed to taking things out of context, using his name and a few minutes of freshly shot video to create all kinds of headlines. A bunch of news such as hashtag Gu Yanxi is chased and blocked by fanatical private fans, hashtag Gu Yanxi suspected love affair exposed, hashtag breaking news. Gu Yanxi was attacked, hashtag, etc. have become hot searches. Looking at these strange headlines, Gu Yanxi admired the imagination of these journalists, but his brows furrowed slightly. Because he died in a car accident before he traveled through time, so if he wants to return to this world, he can only be Gu Yanxi. The system modified the code for him, allowing him to parachute into this world with a fortune of tens of billions and a Nobel Prize winner. Everyone accepted his existence for granted, and subconsciously believed that he and everything he had were reasonable. But the appearance of Hua Yunshan, Wan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue undoubtedly poses a hidden danger to him now. After all, they knew his past, and today they had attracted so much media attention, so it was impossible to treat them lightly. He had to find a way to solve the three hidden dangers created by the unreliable system for his smooth life. So he called the secretary who stayed at the scene and asked him to take Hua Yunshan away quietly. Returning to the familiar office again, Wan Xinyue felt like she was dreaming. She looked at the familiar river view outside the window, then looked at the interior decorations of different styles, and complex emotions flashed in her eyes. Xin Xingxue on the side didn't have so many thoughts. She stared at the door intently, waiting for Gu Yanxi, who would push the door open at any time. But after sitting for 4 or 5 hours, it was almost dark, and the two of them still hadn't waited for Gu Yanxi, and they gradually became a little anxious. They asked the assistant guarding the door several times, but only got the same cold answer. "Bosku still has things to deal with, please be patient." After several hours of public opinion monitoring, what happened in the afternoon was gradually suppressed. But because Gu Yanxi's identity was unusual, although there was no splash on the surface, there were still undercurrents in secret. Through a few words from Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue in the video, netizens began to investigate Gu Yanxi's background. In the end, they really found out that the three of them came from the same orphanage and attended the same elementary school, junior high school, and high school. After that, Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue went to college, while Gu Yanxi dropped out of school. He worked while teaching himself economics courses at school. The three of them seemed to have lost contact from then on. Afterwards, Gu Yanxi used the money he had saved up over the years to start a small company. In just 2 years, he emerged as a powerful force. With his outstanding vision and extraordinary wisdom, he founded the Bai Group. He also won the 124th Nobel Prize in Economics for his tremendous contribution to the international economic market, and became famous both at home and abroad. Although old friends reunited after many years, their identities and status are no longer the same, which made netizens express their feelings. Everyone was discussing why they fell apart and what their future would be.
There are many people with wild imaginations who speculate out of thin air and say that the two women and one man are probably having an emotional dispute. When Gu Yanxi saw this comment, cold sweat broke out on his palms and he began to worry again.
It's been less than half a day and so many things have been dug up. If he doesn't control it, then once these three get to know all about him, won't he be transformed into a monster?
He felt uncomfortable all over when he thought about the fate that would be set up by others. But now that things have come to this, he has to go and see them no matter how reluctant he is. Only by knowing yourself and your enemy can you win every battle. Just when Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingshue's patience was about to run out, the assistant finally received the notice and took them to the meeting room. As soon as they opened the door, the cold white atmosphere and Gu Yanxi's powerful aura made the two people feel uncomfortable. After all, in their impressions, Gu Yanxi has always been the little boy following them, the fledgling hiding under their bright and beautiful wings. So when faced with this cold and indifferent person who was completely different from their impression of him, both of them felt their heartbeats quicken. But years of affection finally overcame the instinctive fear. Ruan Xinyue looked at the familiar face and called out the nickname again. Banquet speech. Before they finished speaking, the assistant beside them looked up at them and gave them a few stern reminders. You two, this is the headquarters of Bai Group. The person standing in front of you is the CEO of Bai Group. It is reasonable for you to call him President Gu. Hearing this, Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue subconsciously looked at Gu Yanxi, thinking that he would refute the assistant. But he didn't react at all, and even his eyes were reluctant to give any alms. He still sat upright in the main seat, with an air of majesty that could not be offended. He looked nothing like the man in their memories. Under pressure from the atmosphere in the room and the groups of bodyguards outside, Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue finally compromised. He spoke clearly and properly, calling out the name that sounded full of estrangement. Mr. Gu. After the assistant closed the door, Gu Yanxi turned around and looked at Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue, his eyes filled with indifference and seriousness that they could not understand. You two, we are strangers. May I ask why you suddenly barged in and caused trouble? What is your intention? Do you want to murder or hijack? Or do you want to incite public opinion? After hearing this question, both of them were stunned. Riot? Murder? Incitement? What does this have to do with anything? Looking at the undisguised look of suspicion on his face, Xin Xingxue realized something was wrong and stepped forward to explain. Ruah. Mr. Gu, we don't have any other intentions. We are just worried about you because you have been gone for so long. Hearing this, Gu Yanxi frowned slightly and glanced at his assistant. The assistant understood what he meant and handed them the things that had been prepared long ago. You too, Mr. Gu has been handling acquisition matters in Beijing North for the past month. He appears in public almost every day. How can he disappear? Please tell the truth, otherwise we will contact the public security authorities. Looking at the reports about Gu Yanxi in the pile of newspapers in front of them, and then looking at the publication time of the newspapers, Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue felt it was ridiculous. Clearly, Bai Group and Gu Yanxi disappeared completely in this month, so why are there so many schedules? Could it be that they encountered a supernatural event or traveled through time and space? The two looked at each other and saw disbelief in each other's eyes. In the end, it was Xin Xingxue who reacted first. She glanced at her assistant and spoke tactfully. There are some things we want to confirm with Mr. Gu. Can you let the assistant? After talking nonsense for so long, we finally got to the key point. Gu Yanxi's heart was in his throat, but he still maintained the demeanor of a superior. He glanced at the two of them, then waved his hand to let his assistant go out. Seeing the person leave, Ruan Xinyue clenched her hands and spoke in a deep voice. Yanxi, do you still recognize us? Of course, Gu Yanxi would not admit to such a thing and shook his head twice decisively. Seeing his action, Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue's eyes flashed with shock. They could no longer sit still and started talking about the past, trying to awaken his memory. We met in the orphanage. At that time, you even fought with other kids for us. You scored very high in the college entrance examination, but gave up going to school for US. You later became a designer and opened your own studio. Hearing these past events from their mouths again, Gu Yanxi felt no wavering in his heart. As for everything that happened in that world, he just regarded it as a dream and no longer had any attachment to it. So no matter how affectionate and touching they described the past, he remained unmoved, as if he had watched a cheap, sensational drama. While Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue were narrating, they kept staring at his expression, trying to find some traces of the past. But even when their mouths were dry and their throats were burning, they didn't see any change in his expression. In the end, Gu Yanxi was not moved. Only Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue, who became more desperate the more they recalled, had their last bit of hope cut off by his increasingly impatient look. It turned out that they really experienced a time travel blunder. It turned out that Gu Yanxi in this time and space really didn't remember everything they had experienced together. You two must have recognized the wrong person, right? I don't remember having any encounter with you. Please don't bother me again. After saying this, Gu Yanxi showed no mercy and directly called his assistant to see the guest off. Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue still refused to give up, their faces full of anxiety. Yanxi, it doesn't matter if you don't remember us, can you give us a chance to stay by your side? Before she could finish her words, the assistant and bodyguards escorted them out. Seeing the two people looking back reluctantly and reluctant to leave, the assistant took out the brochure prepared in advance and handed it to them. If you two want to join Bai Group, you can apply for a job through recruitment. Please don't harass Mr. Gu in such an extreme way. When the two heard this and saw the thick recruitment brochure in their hands, they were moved. Regardless of whether Gu Yanxi remembered them or not, they had no way of letting him go, nor were they willing to leave him like this. If there was even a glimmer of hope that they could get back to him, they would try their best. After successfully sending the person away, the assistant returned to the office and reported the progress of the matter in detail. Gu Yanxi nodded as he listened and began to make the next plan. Contact the TV station to start cooperation and make this spring recruitment into a TV program in the form of a live job search and broadcast it to the entire network. The speed must be fast and the publicity must be in place. The assistant quickly wrote down the key points, and then immediately notified the relevant person in charge to set up a project team. Seeing that everything was on track, Gu Yanxi felt relieved and set off for the hotel. As soon as the car stopped in front of the hotel, the secretary who had been waiting outside came forward to report the progress of the matter. Mr. Gu, I have signed a contract with Mr. Hua as you said, hiring him as your image designer. He doesn't know you are his boss yet, and he is waiting for you in the living room. Although things were going smoothly, Gu Yanxi still had a headache when he thought about dealing with Hua Yunshin. He rubbed his eyebrows, adjusted his expression, and walked slowly and calmly into the room. The moment the door was opened, Hua Yunshin, with a flattering smile on his face, saw Gu Yanxi appear, and he froze on the spot. Ever since Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue fell into poverty, he also lost his source of income and has been sending out his resume everywhere. But for some reason, all his resumes were ignored and he didn't have much money left, so he was anxious every day. He was originally going to go watch the fun with Ruan Xinyue and the others this afternoon, but because there were too many people, he was blocked outside and couldn't get in. When the excitement died down, someone suddenly contacted him and asked him if he was interested in applying for a job. He thought it was a response to his previously submitted resume, so he hurried over. After hearing the generous remuneration terms, Hua Yunshin signed the contract without hesitation, without even bothering to read the details of the contract. He thought that his unpopular steed had finally found its master. But unexpectedly, Bol was actually the love rival who had framed her in the past. When he thought of what he had done some time ago, and then looked at the contract on the table and the person in front of him, Hua Yunshin broke out in a cold sweat on his forehead. He felt so guilty that he couldn't even speak. Gu Yanxi sat leisurely on the sofa, looked at him intently, and greeted him with a smile. Long time no see. I didn't expect that after all these twists and turns, you'd become my employee again. Hua Yunshin's face turned extremely pale and he began to stutter. You, what do you mean? Gu Yanxi picked up the thick stack of contracts on the table and was very satisfied with the secretary's ability. What do you mean? Of course, congratulations on becoming my image designer. I heard that you won the gold medal in the design competition. I am looking forward to your work. He was clearly smiling when he said this, but it gave Hua Yunshin a shudder. He seemed to have foreseen the difficult situation that would follow and was about to tear up the contract on the spot. I quit. Find someone else. He is indeed a college graduate. How ignorant. Gu Yanxi smiled and threw the contract in his hand to the secretary. The secretary understood what he meant and directly spread out the contract as well as the confidentiality agreement and non-competition agreement attached to it. Mr. Hua, we signed a 5-year contract. According to the agreement, if you cancel the cooperation without reason, you will have to compensate our company 10 times the price. The amount of liquidated damages you need to pay is 8 million. This amount is an astronomical figure for Hua Yunshin now. Even if he sold him, he couldn't afford the money. It was not until this moment that he finally understood that it was not pie in the sky, but it is a sheep walking into the tiger's mouth. The job hunting program Ichi Job Hunting, jointly produced by Bai Group and Yumi Film and Television, caused heated discussions online as soon as it was announced. There is no other reason, it is simply because the CEO of Bai Group will participate in the program throughout and truly present the entire process of boss direct recruitment. Thanks to Gu Yanxi's huge traffic, resumes flew to the Human Resources Department like snowflakes. Shen Xingxue and Ruan Xinyue are also part of it. The two people each selected a suitable position and sent their carefully prepared resumes to the email address. Soon, they received a notification that they had passed the initial screening and could participate in the subsequent interview process. The two were so excited that they took several part-time jobs, rented 2 suits and skirts, and prepared to participate in the next live interview. The interview happened to be a weekend, and there was a huge crowd in front of Bai Group. More than a dozen live broadcast rooms were opened at the same time, and hundreds of millions of viewers flocked in to watch this grand job hunting program. The room with the largest number of viewers is undoubtedly the main live broadcast room hosted by Gu Yanxi. In one morning, he interviewed 5 job applicants, and his meticulous thinking and excellent vision attracted continuous praise from the comments. Ruan Xinyue and Shen Xingxue's interviews were scheduled for the last 2 sessions in the morning. At 11:30, 2 people received a notice and followed the person in charge to the outside of the main live broadcast room. Looking at Gu Yanxi, who was still in the interview, both of them had a gentle light in their eyes. After the interview inside was over, the 2 people were about to go in, but the person in charge stopped them. "I'm sorry, the interview in the original room has not yet ended, so I temporarily transferred you to the main live broadcast room. The main interviewer will be here soon. Please wait." Isn't the main interviewer Gu Yanxi? Both of them were stunned. Gu Yanxi finished his last interview, said goodbye politely to the fans in the live broadcast room, and then pushed the door open and walked out. When he passed by Ruan Xinyue and Shen Xingxue, facing their lost looks, he didn't even look at them and left without even glancing at them. The 2 people stared at his back as he left, and he didn't look back even once until he completely disappeared. They were so immersed in the sad atmosphere that they did not notice that the main interviewer had arrived and taken his seat. The person in charge took the sign-in sheet and began to call the roll. "Ruan Xinyue, Shen Xingxue, your interview will begin soon. Please enter the conference room now." Although Gu Yanxi has left, his fans are still enthusiastic and active in the main live broadcast room. As soon as Ruan Xinyue appeared, fans started to flood the screen with messages. The turmoil in the world is so great that it is difficult to understand. Who is this? Why does he look familiar? I know her too. She's pretty good looking. Is she a little internet celebrity here to take advantage of the popularity? Ruan Xinyue couldn't see these comments. She was still thinking about Gu Yanxi's cold attitude when he left just now, and her attention was a little distracted. The main interviewer flipped through her resume and saw that she was applying for the position of product manager, and immediately asked a lot of targeted questions. "You said on your resume that you have relevant work experience. Could you please tell me the position and job content of your last job?" Having been the president for 2 years, Ruan Xinyue blurted out this question subconsciously when she heard it. "Before, I was the CEO of Bai Group." As soon as these words came out, everyone in the conference room and all the comments became alert. Bai Group? CEO? Isn't this Mr. Gu Yanxi's seat? Soon, Ruan Xinyue realized that she had said the wrong thing in the shocked eyes of the interviewers. Her heart was also in a mess, and she started to explain quickly. "No, I was in charge of decision-making before." Decision-making end? What exactly is that position? Faced with the interviewer's questioning, Ruan Xinyue was flustered and didn't know how to explain it. The comments on the barrage started laughing as they watched this absurd scene. Damn, how did these sisters pass the initial test? I'm afraid they drank fake wine. That's so funny. CEO of Bai Group, you can tell such a lie. Do you want to see which group you are interviewing for? These sisters are bound to be popular. They are really clown internet celebrities who are here to take advantage of the popularity. They want to become famous by being discredited, right? After a great panic, Ruan Xinyue's second interview unexpectedly failed. She walked out of the room with a sullen face. Shen Xingxue was stunned when she saw her expression. She wanted to ask what had happened, but the person in charge was already calling her name. She could only put aside her doubts for the time being and walk into the meeting room. Compared to the careless Ruan Xinyue, her attitude was calmer and more serious, which left a good impression on the interviewer.
Xinxingxue, I see that you are applying for the position of data analyst. Your resume says that you have won relevant awards. Can you elaborate on which awards they are?
In front of the eagerly awaited interviewer in comments, Xinxingxue said the words Nobel Prize in Mathematics without a second thought. For a moment, the entire conference room was silent. The barrage was also filled with a series of question marks.
No, the math award? Are you and the last sister teaming up to create a show effect? What an amazing show! What a talented abstract player!
Gu Yanxi, who was watching the whole process, looked at the excited comments and knew that these two live interviews would soon become popular on the internet. Only he knew that they were both telling the truth.
Ruan Xinyue is indeed the CEO of Bai Group.
In another time and space, the Nobel Prize in Mathematics did exist, and Xinxingxue won this award. But all their honor and fame were achieved by him personally. Now, he was just taking back the wealth and intelligence he had given them. The codes of Bai Group and Nobel Prize in the previous world were modified and transferred to this world and became his possession. And they are obviously still immersed in that beautiful dream of being cheered by thousands of people. They have not woken up yet and are unwilling to accept the reality of returning to their impoverished life. With these two jokes that sound so hilarious, netizens will no longer take them seriously no matter what weird remarks they make in the future. And this is the real intention of why he took so much trouble to host this program. As expected, Ruan Xinyue and Xinxingxue were both eliminated in the second interview, and also contributed 200% of the popularity to the program Ichi Job Hunting. Having experienced so much glory, how could they be willing to become the laughingstock of the entire internet? What made him even more unwilling was that he had made such a big fool of himself in front of Gu Yanxi. So they couldn't accept this result and stopped him again, wanting to explain it to him. Gu Yanxi didn't have the time or the energy to listen to their nonsense, so he asked his assistant to handle it. The assistant regarded them as frustrated job seekers who had failed in their job search and proposed a solution on the spot. You didn't make it through the second round of interviews. Unfortunately, you won't be able to work with General Gu. In view of the enthusiasm you have contributed to the program, our company can consider giving you another chance, but our recruitment for all positions has ended. Currently, only the cleaning and security positions are vacant. Are you willing to consider it? Cleaning and security? When they heard about these two positions, Ruan Xinyue and Xinxingxue's faces suddenly turned dark. The assistant knew from their expressions that they disagreed, so he didn't waste any more words. Since you two are unwilling, I'm sorry. Please pay attention to our official website and wait for the next event to start. When will the next time be, neither of them knows. Whether or not you can get the job again is still an unknown. The realistic pressure of survival and the strong desire to stay with Gu Yanxi slowly undermined the reluctant wishes of Ruan Xinyue and Xinxingxue. After a fierce psychological struggle, Xinxingxue struggled to say, I want to try the security position. Seeing that she had compromised, Ruan Xinyue made up her mind and agreed to join the security team. The assistant took out his cell phone to check and gave her a regretful smile. I'm sorry, Mr. Ruan, the security position is full. You can consider the cleaning position. This is the only vacant position left in our company. Ruan Xinyue didn't want to change her mind at first, but when she heard that this was the only position left, she hurriedly agreed. Then keep the house. The assistant brought the final admission results of this spring recruitment. Gu Yanxi flipped from the first page to the last one, and couldn't help laughing when he saw Xinxingxue and Ruan Xinyue wearing security and cleaning uniforms. There is no distinction between high and low jobs in life, but the two of them have always been arrogant and conceited, and he thought they would not agree. After a moment of surprise, he slowly put the matter behind him and got back to work. During the break, the secretary brought over all the design drafts that Hui Yunqian had submitted during this period. Gu Yanxi took a quick look and immediately frowned. What are all these things? It's not that he was deliberately making things difficult for Hui Yunqian, but in his opinion, these design drafts were indeed not in line with the rules, and were even worse than the graduation projects of ordinary students. So he didn't like any of the pictures and sent them back to be redone. After the assistant conveyed this result to Hui Yunqian, he completely collapsed. He spent more than half a month racking his brains to come up with these drawings, but the result was a huge setback. He had reason to suspect that Gu Yanxi was deliberately trying to torture him, and he lost his temper at the secretary on the spot. How is it possible that I don't get any? Is it that Gu Yanxi has something against me? Seeing that he still refused to admit that it was his problem and not wanting to waste any more time, the secretary took him directly to the design department and handed all the drawings over to professionals. The design director of Bai Group was notoriously sharp-eyed and sharp-tongued. Right in front of Hui Yunshin, he criticized his design drawings to the point of being completely worthless. Hui Yunshin had never been humiliated like this before. He was so angry that he was about to smoke, but due to the fact that the other party outnumbered him, he had no place to vent his anger and could only suppress it in his heart. The secretary looked at his red eyes and lips that were about to bleed from biting, handed the manuscript back to him, and kindly reminded him. Mr. Hua, according to the contract, you need to complete 10 qualified design drawings this month, otherwise you can only get a base salary of 4,000. There are 5 days left, please do your best. At Bai Group, security guards and cleaners must undergo rigorous training before joining the company. In the past 2 years, Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue have become accustomed to the life of being superior to others, so in the early stages of training, faced with strict rules and regulations, they both showed a strong sense of discomfort. The security team leader and the cleaning team leader did not show leniency to the students and imposed corresponding punishments on them for their violations and mistakes. The salary of 4,500 yuan during the probation period was deducted from everything, leaving only 3,000 yuan. The two used the money to rent a shabby little room, so they had a place to live and no longer had to sleep on the streets. After deducting the rent, the remaining 3,000 yuan is barely enough for food and clothing if you save it. Once they returned to their most impoverished and destitute times, Wan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue felt extremely lost. But as long as I arrive at the company and can see Gu Yanxi during my shift, these painful emotions will be alleviated a lot. With this little comfort, the two survived the probation period, became full-time employees, and slowly accepted reality. Xin Xingxue is on duty at the main gate, working hours from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. But she was used to arriving at work half an hour early every day, because when it was busy occasionally, Gu Yanxi would come to the company early. She didn't want to miss any opportunity to see him. Ruan Xinyue is responsible for the sanitation and cleaning of the entire building, and her working hours are from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. She was used to leaving work an hour later every day because Gu Yanxi often worked overtime until the early hours of the morning. She was worried that something might happen to him if it was too late, so she wanted to protect him a little longer. Gu Yanxi was completely unaware of all this. He almost forgot that they both worked in the company as he was busy dealing with the newly launched projects. Because it involves the gaming industry, which he doesn't understand well, he often works overtime until the early hours of the morning these days. Having drunk a few extra cups of coffee during the day, Gu Yanxi felt more and more energetic towards the evening. By the time he felt tired and realized it was time to get off work, he found it was already 1 in the morning. He never exploited his employees. His assistant secretary would leave as soon as it was time to get off work, and his office was the only one with the lights on in the entire building. He turned off the lights and walked through the long corridor alone. Just as he was about to contact the driver for the night shift, he saw a familiar figure at the elevator entrance. It's Ruan Xinyue. She had changed out of her cleaning uniform and looked like she was off work. As soon as she saw him, she immediately put away the depressed expression on her face and put on an unnatural smile. Rua. Mr. Gu, are you getting off work now? Faced with her deliberate greeting, Gu Yanxi still had no expression and reacted very coldly. The smile on Ruan Xinyue's face froze. But she didn't want to give up this rare opportunity and continued to find topics to talk about. I just got off work too. It's too late. Can I take you home? Gu Yanxi pressed the elevator button and politely declined. Ruan Xinyue's heart choked and the smile on her face almost disappeared. The two people entered the elevator one after another without saying a word, and the atmosphere became stagnant. It is raining heavily outside. Looking at the incessant rain, Gu Yanxi was about to contact the housekeeper to ask the driver to come over when a car suddenly stopped at the door. The car window rolled down, revealing Xin Xingxue's face. It's raining, and there's no taxi now. I'll pick you up, Yanxi, let's take you home together. Gu Yanxi originally wanted to refuse. But he called the housekeeper and the driver several times but no one answered, so he reluctantly agreed. Seeing him nod, the two of them couldn't help but rush to help him open the car door. He ignored them and opened the passenger door and got in. The driver, who was very good at reading people's expressions, understood at a glance that the richest person in the car was the one next to him, and hurriedly and attentively asked about the destination. Shanyun Mountain Villa District. Along the way, Ruan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue found many topics to talk about, but Gu Yanxi didn't respond to a single word. He closed his eyes and listened to the soft sound of raindrops hitting the window. His nerves, which had been tense all day, finally relaxed. The two people in the back seat were quiet for a while. After the taxi stopped at the villa area, Gu Yanxi paid the fare readily, opened the door and was about to get out. Seeing this, Shen Xingxue, who was in the back seat, hurriedly chased after him, opened an umbrella and held it above his head. "Don't get wet in the rain, or you'll catch a cold." After their reunion, the two were so close to each other for the first time. Hearing her gentle voice again and seeing those eyes full of concern and heartache, Gu Yanxi suddenly thought he had returned to 5 years ago. At that time, Shen Xingxue, who was cold towards everything, would only show such a gentle look to him, and Ruan Xinyue, who had a rebellious personality and didn't listen to anyone, believed whatever he said. At that time, Hui Yunqian had not yet appeared. They were still a stable childhood sweethearts in the form of a triangle. They had shared the same past through thick and thin, and looked forward to an uncertain future together. At that time, he would worry about not being able to earn enough points, and would also be sad that one day he would have to say goodbye to them. Through these eyes, Gu Yanxi recalled his dusty past. But the cold raindrops falling on his ankles reminded him that it was all in the past. He shifted his gaze to look at the housekeeper, who was running towards him with an umbrella in the distance, and spoke slowly. The tone was very calm and composed. "Thank you. You can get your return fare tonight reimbursed by the company." After saying that, Gu Yanxi walked out without any hesitation under the big umbrella that could block the raindrops. The heavy rain just fell on his shoulders, but before it had time to wet his clothes, it was blocked by another umbrella. He had never been the little boy who needed their protection. From the very beginning, he was the attacker sent by the system to save them. Now that the mission was over, his parachute would no longer move an inch, but would remain upright above his head. To protect himself from the wind and rain, Gu Yanxi didn't wake up until noon the next day. He stretched his body and walked out of the bedroom. The secretary who had been waiting at the door came forward and reported on his schedule for the next week. After breakfast, the itinerary report was just finished. Gu Yanxi was about to go out for some sun when he saw his secretary looking embarrassed. "Anything else?" "It's Hui Yunqian. All his design drafts in the past few months have been rejected by Director Chai. He has begun to give up on himself." At first, Gu Yanxi thought that Hui Yunqian was just not worthy of the reputation and could not produce a work worthy of winning a gold medal. But looking at the current situation, he seems to have no skills at all and cannot even design the most basic and simplest works. Is this the level of a top student in the design department of S University? Gu Yanxi became deeply suspicious. He also said that he wanted to meet you and talk, saying that many of the things that happened before were misunderstandings. What do you think? Is it all a misunderstanding? Looking at the scar on his hand caused by the chandelier that has not yet disappeared, Gu Yanxi raised his eyebrows and chuckled. He didn't really want to see Hui Yunqian. But after hearing this, Gu Yanxi really wanted to meet him. An hour later, Hui Yunqian was brought to the villa by his assistant. "I haven't seen him for a few months. Maybe due to malnutrition, he is very thin, with dark circles under his pale face and bloodshot eyes." When he saw his miserable appearance, Gu Yanxi suddenly remembered that he also looked so pitiful when he first came to the studio for an interview. At that time, he was soft-hearted, and when he heard Hui Yunqian crying and talking about his impoverished family background, he made an exception and gave him the opportunity to do an internship. At the beginning, Hui Yunqian stuck to him every day, calling him brother all the time. After he decided not to get close to Ruan Xinyue and Shen Xingxue, his true nature was exposed and he deliberately created obstacles to alienate the three of them. It was a pity that he chose the wrong person and held the wrong patron. After finally enjoying a few days of wealth and prosperity, they were gone like smoke. Thinking of his ups and downs in the past few months, Gu Yanxi felt both pity and ridiculous. But he showed no expression and just spoke calmly. "I heard you wanted to meet me, what's the matter?" After getting off the car, Hui Yunqian never closed his eyes. Along the way, he looked at the elegant gardens, the magnificent villas, and the exquisite and valuable ornaments, and he felt so angry that his eyes seemed to be spitting fire. When he entered the living room, he saw Gu Yanxi lying lazily on the sofa with jewels worth tens of millions or even hundreds of millions on his body. He was so jealous that his teeth were broken. Why can he always enjoy such a happy life? And yet I am forced to draw the design drafts day and night in a dark rental house, and if I don't do it, I will have to pay a huge amount of compensation? The dark and jealous emotions flowed through Hui Yunqian's body like venom, almost devouring all of his sanity. But he knew that when you are under someone's roof,
you have to bow your head.
So he suppressed the emotions surging in his heart and forced a flattering smile.
Brother Yancy, long time no see. Actually, I came here today to apologize to you. I was ignorant before.
When he heard the word apology, Gu Yancy couldn't help but think of the way he looked when he was accusing someone of something with the aroma of tea everywhere. He didn't believe that Hui Yunshan would sincerely repent and apologize, and he didn't intend to give him this opportunity.
That's not necessary, because I have never taken you seriously. Just one sentence pierced Hui Yunshan's fragile self-esteem.
He clenched his hands tightly, and his sharp nails pierced his palms, leaving scratches. The painful emotions that had tormented him day and night surged up again. He couldn't hold it in any longer and let those vicious emotions pour out of his eyes as he screamed loudly.
Yes.
I am a poor man who has to borrow money for tuition.
I am not presentable. But what do you have to be proud of? Didn't you also crawl out of the slums and rely on Wan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue to get to where you are today? How are you nobler than me? Why do you show off in front of me?
You stole their lives, and you will definitely be punished, Gu Yancy.
Steal? Hearing this word, Gu Yancy's lips curled up into a faint smile.
He slowly stood up and looked coldly at the thin and small person in front of him. Everything I have today, whether it's the wealth, status, or fame that you envy, is something I earned on my own. It has nothing to do with Wan Xinyue or Xin Xingxue. To be exact, everything they once had was given to them by me, and because they were ungrateful, I took it all back.
Hui Yunshan, it's not a mistake to be born poor.
All the suffering you've endured has nothing to do with me.
It's simply because you're too greedy and do whatever it takes for the sake of immediate benefits that you've ended up in this situation today. The one who is suffering retribution is not me, but you.
For 3 consecutive months, Hui Yunshan failed to submit a single design draft as required by the contract.
So according to the agreement, his cooperation with Gu Yancy was terminated and he would pay 8 million in compensation.
After learning about this on the way back, Hui Yunshan's already shaky psychological defenses completely collapsed. When he got this job, he thought there was always a way out and that God had pointed a clear path for him. But he didn't expect that what was waiting for him was a cage that was deliberately prepared to trap him for the rest of his life. Looking at the name signed on the contract, he couldn't help but think of the last words Gu Yancy said to him before leaving the villa.
In the last design competition, Wan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue paid for the mistakes you made.
Unfortunately, they are now busy with their own affairs and may not have the energy to pay the compensation for you.
You are an adult. Before signing the contract, didn't you think that with your ability, you would not be able to take such a large order?
It's not me who wants to retaliate against you, but your inflated and rampant greed. When he said this, the smug expression on Gu Yancy's eyebrows and eyes, and the faint smile on his lips, made Hui Yunshan more jealous than the numbers in front of him. He tore the thick contract in front of him into pieces as if he was crazy. Because he was too excited, his whole face turned red and the veins on his forehead were throbbing.
8 million, 8 million, 8 million.
A day and a night passed without him resting for a moment. Countless zeros kept recurring in his mind, making it impossible for him to calm down. If he were to bear this 8 million debt, he would be trampled in the mud by Gu Yancy for the rest of his life. Thinking of this, Hui Yunshan became completely desperate and even had thoughts of suicide.
But what's the point if he committed suicide? Gu Yancy is still a high-ranking wealthy young master, still able to enjoy a life of luxury and is praised by everyone. Why can he live without worries while I have to die silently? The person who should be damned should be Gu Yancy.
As soon as this year appeared, it took root in Hui Yunshan's heart.
He couldn't help laughing, with a crazy and gloomy look in his eyes. It was as if he had already seen the expression of disbelief and despair on Gu Yancy's face when he died. The day of summer solstice marks the 3rd anniversary of the establishment of Bai Group. To celebrate, the group held a grand ceremony at its headquarters.
Halfway through the ceremony, Gu Yancy drank too much and felt a little drowsy, so he avoided the crowd and slipped out to sober up. The summer night breeze was hot, blowing his hair all over the place and blocking his view. Gu Yancy squinted his eyes and fixed his hair when he suddenly heard someone calling his name from behind. When he turned around, he saw Wan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue running towards him. The way the two of them ran over with smiles on their faces was exactly the same as when they were 17 years old. It's a pity that he is no longer 17 years old now.
Gu Yancy was not drunk yet, he knew this clearly.
So he returned to his usual cold expression, as if he was looking at a stranger. When he raised his head again with a cold face, he saw that Wan Xinyue and Xin Xingxue both had expressions of horror on their faces. He turned his head following their gaze and saw a car speeding towards him, only 10 meters away. Too much alcohol made his thinking a little slow. By the time he realized that Hui Yunshin, who was driving the car, seemed to want to take revenge on him, the car had already rushed in front of him. Just when he thought he was going to have a car accident for the third time, a strong force of gravity pushed him away. Gu Yanxi fell into the flower bed, and except for minor injuries on his arms and legs, he was intact. Hui Yunshin was forced into a corner by several police cars chasing him and was handcuffed. Ruan Xinyue and Shin Xingxue were hit by the car and flew very far away, falling in a pool of blood. This tragic scene was just like the car accident 2 years ago that almost took Gu Yanxi's life. Bright red blood flowed out of their bodies and seeped into the dark asphalt road. From a distance, it looks like countless still rivers. It will never flow again.